Hello and welcome to Creator Weekly Live for January 26, 2025. I'm Peggy Kay, and this week there are updates for YouTube and Instagram and, of course, TikTok. How can we not talk about TikTok? And then at the end, I'm going to be taking a look back at 10 years ago this week. The theme is the more things change, the more things stay the same. I hope if you're out there and there's bad winter storms that you've got everything tied down and you're surviving okay. So this has been a long week and we are in for interesting times is all I'll say about that. So I wanted to start with a couple of small YouTube updates. The first thing is that YouTube is asking for feedback on the YouTube Studio dashboard. And if you are a YouTube creator, you should take a look. There is a link in the latest This Week at YouTube video on the Creator Insider channel. There's also a link in this week's newsletter and blog post linked in the description. So if you're a creator, you should check that out. YouTube is asking for your opinion, so give it to them. The other YouTube update I wanted to mention is an update for Shorts templates. It now supports the import of photos into the template during the creation process, and you can toggle the timer between 3 seconds and 10 seconds now. So it's very small kind of quality of life updates. So before I start talking about the big news this week, I want to say hi to Craig and Jolyn and everybody who is here live. Please say hello in the live chat. I'd love to hear what you think about this week's updates. Like I said, interesting times. So the first thing I wanted to talk about are what is happening with ByteDance, TikTok, CapCut. So just to recap, there was a US law that went into effect 1 week ago on January 19th that said TikTok either had to sell off its US business or it would be banned. TikTok proactively was closed. ByteDance, the parent company, actually closed off US access to all of its apps and services. So that would be TikTok and CapCut and Lemonade and a bunch of other apps like Marvel Snap. So last Saturday, they shut off that access. And then last Sunday, as I was talking, they restored access based on assurances they got from the incoming Trump administration that they would not be prosecuted. So there was a greeting, welcome back, thank you for your patience and support. As a result of President Trump's efforts, TikTok is back in the US. Okay, so that was actually the day before Trump took office. But as expected, last Monday, there's a similar message on CapCut. So last Monday, one of the first things Trump did after being inaugurated is signing an executive order that delayed the enforcement of the law for 75 days. That's 2.5 months. Now, this does not repeal the law. The law is still in effect. It was just a statement, basically, we're not going to enforce it. So based on that, if you're in the US, you can use your TikTok or CapCut app. You can access TikTok, CapCut, all these apps on the web as well. They are currently trying to figure out what's going to happen after those 75 days. The law is still in effect. I know there's been legislation introduced to Congress to repeal the law. I think that that's kind of a hard sell because it was a very popular law when it was first passed, and the whole premise was this was a national security issue. I mean, I guess at least theoretically, they could go back and say it was a national security issue a year ago, but now it's fine. But that seems implausible to me because I think some members of Congress still feel really strongly about that. The alternative is to have TikTok sell off its US business. There are supposedly negotiations going on, a lot of rumors. I've seen multiple news sources, oh, they were talking with Oracle, and then another news source says, nope, they actually said, we're not talking with Oracle. Who knows what is going to happen? I can't predict anything because everything is crazy right now. But when I say that these are back, they're only sort of back because, again, this law is still in effect. And what has not changed is that if you want to download any of these apps, you can't actually do that. So if you go to the Google Play Store and you do a search for TikTok, what you see is a notice that says, looking for TikTok? Downloads for this app are paused due to current US legal requirements. And I will say, this is what it looked like 12 hours ago when I last checked. Who knows, maybe it's different right now. But it's not just the Google Play Store. If you go to the Apple App Store, this is a search I did on a non-Apple device, which is why it looks like this. But if I search for TikTok, TikTok doesn't even come up. What you see are competing apps, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, YouTube. And Apple has actually posted a statement a week ago that they will not be allowing downloads in the US of any of ByteDance's apps, again, because this law is still in effect, and the Google and Apple have not received assurances that they will not be prosecuted for hosting these apps and allowing downloads. I don't think the executive order that was signed on Monday actually addresses that, or at least not in a way they do it. So that's bad because it means you can't do a fresh install of these apps and you can't get any updates to the apps, even if it's a security issue. So not ideal. And hopefully TikTok creators are really considering this and diversifying, because even if TikTok is entirely back, it's probably not going to be the same. You know, it's not clear what happens if ByteDance sells off the US portion of their business. Would they sell the whole thing? Would they sell it with the algorithm that they currently use? Maybe not. Interesting times. And what we also saw over the past week is all these other platforms kind of swooping in and saying, hey, let's do more video. That's my imitation of them. So, for example, Bluesky created an official trending video feed. You can pin this feed to your home screen in Bluesky. So again, it's not the same as TikTok, but you can do it. And there are also a few other video feeds. Surf Social, which is created by Flipboard, it's a social feed following site. They created what they're calling Skytok feeds. Again, Bluesky lets people create whatever feed they want. So you can use hashtags, for example, to find all the similar content. They created what they call a gamer talk feed and a retro talk feed and a bunch of other different video feeds that you can follow and pin to your home screen. You can see it when you go on Bluesky. It's kind of neat that the flexibility is there. but none of the algorithm, which could be good, could be bad. Just to pause for a second, looking at the comments. Jolynn says, I didn't uninstall the TikTok app on my phone or tablet, so I still have the app and it's working. Glad I didn't jump to close it. I mostly use the website though. Yeah. So if you have the app installed, TikTok or CapCut is something obviously a lot of people were missing. You can continue to use them in the US at least until the next change, but you can't remove it and reinstall it, and you can't update it. So it wasn't just Bluesky with a video feed. X announced they are having their own immersive video feed. They launched it for the iOS app, and the video feed icon replaces the community icon. I think there's another story there about how maybe X communities are doing if it's replaced by the video feed. This is, again, only for iOS right now, but they say Android and web versions are coming as well. And then, in a surprise move, at least surprising to me, Tumblr, which is currently owned by Automatic, which also owns WordPress.com, they officially launched their Tumblr TV tag. This is notable because Tumblr TV, this tab, has been an experiment on Tumblr since 2015. So it hasn't really been worked on for 10 years, but this was the time to launch it. And so it's actually a combination of animated GIFs and videos. It is very Tumblr, if you know what I mean. It has a bunch of topic feeds like anime, gaming, K-pop, nature. And if you're using Tumblr, you may need to enable the Tumblr TV tab on your dashboard. There's a setting there. You can toggle it on and off along with the other tabs. So, like I said, everybody was jumping in at this time. Over on Instagram, they were only slightly ahead of the curve because they made their announcements last Saturday rather than Monday or Tuesday or whatever. So they announced, I talked about this more last week, announced Reels up to 3 minutes in the editor and a new Reels feed that shows Reels your friends have liked. So again, all of these platforms want TikTok creators to come and post their videos there. They want people to consume videos on their platform. So I'm not sure this is actually going to work because TikTok is its own thing. The vibe is different. The algorithm is different. It's not the same to go to Instagram or YouTube or any of these other platforms. But Instagram actually kicked it up a notch, as they say. They are launching a new mobile video editing app called Edits, which, does anyone know how to name anything in Silicon Valley? I'm not sure. Anyway, there's a new app called Edits. They say it's going to be a full suite of creative tools, a better camera. You can share drafts of your videos, but it is currently just being tested. And if you have an iOS device, you can actually pre-order it in the Apple App Store. There will be an Android version also. It's not actually going to be available until at least March. So this seems like they really rushed this out. And again, no coincidence that they announced this last Sunday. I think it's good. I think more competitors are good. The bad thing, I think in general, is that Meta is such a huge company. They can afford to really put their efforts into developing this app and launch it and offer it completely free, where a lot of other video editing apps, they have to ask people to pay. So I think it could be a bit of a CapCut killer, because CapCut started charging people who wanted more advanced features, even HD video export. So again, we'll see where this goes. It's not actually available until March, so a lot can happen before then. And Meta is not subtle. They launched what they call a breakthrough bonus program. The idea is that people who are new to Instagram and Facebook, but who have a following on other social media, can sign up for this program. And if they're approved, they can earn bonuses. The idea is to sort of just start running so people aren't starting over from scratch if they already have a social media following. This is obviously aimed at TikTokers. Like, quite literally, they were apparently reaching out to popular people on TikTok last weekend to try and get them to sign up for this program. So yeah, we will see what happens. I want to say hi again to everyone in the chat. I see Braylon and Nina are here. Welcome. Nina says, I located marketers moving to Bluesky. It's very USA for now, but the Twitter resemblance functionality makes it desired for me. Yeah, I think it's hard to know where everyone is going to be. I think maybe going forward, we're never going to have everyone all on the same platform the way it was. Maybe that was an anomaly. But there is actually a fair number of people in SEO and marketing and those kinds of things on Bluesky. And oh yeah, this is important that Nina says social media has lost users' confidence. I think that's absolutely true. And I think they've made pretty clear a lot of things. Zuckerberg and Musk, they're in it for themselves. They don't care about users so much. And here we are. So just to shift gears a little bit, we'll talk about things other than video. A few updates for Instagram. Now, Instagram profiles. If you go to a profile on Instagram, there's a grid of images and video thumbnails. And basically forever, that's been a grid of squares. Last week, Instagram changed the layout so that the thumbnails there are no longer squares, they're vertical images. Not hugely vertical, I think they're 3x4, but still noticeable because some creators had actually carefully picked thumbnails for their grid to make a larger image, and now those look stupid. So for reasons I don't understand at all, Instagram did this without warning anyone. And creators were unhappy. And Adam Mosseri, the head of Instagram, was like, oh, well, sorry, we should have told you, should have given you a heads up. Yes, so what is Instagram even doing? I don't know. But they took this opportunity to announce a few more updates coming to Instagram profiles. Highlights tab, instead of having highlights at the top, which kind of pushes everything down, they're going to make it a separate tab, makes it less visible. I don't know. And you'll be able to reorder things in your grid or post to the grid directly. Those will be coming, I'm not sure how soon. So I wanted to just say that there were a few other updates this week, a couple updates for Threads, for WordPress, a few others. I'm not going to have time to talk about all of them today, Be sure to check out this week's newsletter and blog post. The links are in the video description, and sign up to my newsletter by email. You get all of the updates and tips in your email inbox every Saturday. You can stay up to date that way. So I wanted now to shift gears just a little bit, talk about 10 years ago this week. This is my celebration of doing Creator Weekly for 10 years. And I think it speaks to today. The more things change, the more things stay the same. I know there's a really great French phrase that I can't pronounce. So this week, I wanted to highlight let's see. "10 years ago this week, Facebook added a new option to report a post as a false news story." Right. So they framed this update as a way to show fewer hoaxes. And they said people should flag scams and false news, and then they would reduce the distribution of posts that have these flags and add an annotation to posts that got a lot of flags. They said they would not actually remove these posts people report as false. They would not review them to determine if they were true or false, but they would reduce the reach of these posts. And it feels very much like there was a certain naivete about this announcement, because it relies on people, first of all, to identify a post as a hoax or false news, and then it relies on people reporting that en masse, and it assumes that people would not report real news, real posts as false as a way to try and reduce their distribution. And I think all of those things happen. So this was 10 years ago. Has this solved the false news problem? Of course, absolutely not. In 2016, after the US election, and this was Trump's first election, they were once again announcing they were making it easier to report false news. They changed the flagging settings just a little bit. And at this point, they started working with third-party fact-checking. They said, if there were a lot of flags, some of these posts would go to the third-party fact-checkers. And if they determined a story was fake, it would get flagged as disputed, and there would be a link to a corresponding article explaining why. So, and these stories that were disputed might appear lower in your news feed. Now, Zuckerberg and the Meta top brass have framed this as being censorship somehow, but no, it went to the fact checkers, and the fact checkers would check, and if it turned out to not be true, there was a link to more information. That's all it was. But of course, people who intentionally share false news are not happy when their posts are flagged and get a label and maybe don't appear as high in the news feed. So in 2020, 4 years later, this is another round of the US election, there were reports that conservative pages were not being dinged for misinformation because they were raising a stink about it. This obviously doesn't work, right? If you can't have a misinformation policy and then exclude some people from the policy because they're mad about it. And Again, nothing changed to reduce the amount of misinformation, or if they made changes, they were small changes. So here we are in 2025. 10 years later, what is the status? Well, a couple of weeks ago, Meta once again announced they are changing the way that they handle misinformation. Again, this seems to be pandering to the incoming US presidential administration, where they say they're getting rid of the fact checkers. And somehow they're framing that as censorship, which makes no sense, of course. But they are shifting to a system where there are community notes. And people who see a post and are in this community notes program can add a note with an explainer and links to more information, but it's not an official third-party fact checker. These are just regular users, supposedly. This is similar to a system X has for adding notes. The notes only appear publicly if there's a consensus that it should be added. And they supposedly are going to have people from across the political spectrum, and everybody has to agree. The thing is, that means for the most contentious things, those notes will never appear. And another problem on X is that even when there is a note, people may have seen these posts millions of times before any notes appear. So yeah, they're not actually fixing any disinformation here, the spread of misinformation, and at the same time, they're pushing their generative AI tools that make it really easy to create hoaxes and fake news. So this is obviously something that's not easy to fix, and I'll give that to them. But it feels like Meta just isn't trying, and they just don't want to make people mad. Or at least they don't want to make the people in power mad. So that was 10 years ago this week. I'm expecting full on 10 years ago from 10 years ago, 10 years in the future, that this will still be a problem. And maybe then, though, Meta won't be providing generative AI tools to help people make the fake news. So those are the updates for this week. Thank you all for joining me. I do really appreciate the live chat here. It means I'm not just talking to myself. And I appreciate all your experiences and opinions. So thank you so much for that. I wanted to mention that immediately after this live stream, I'm going to be over on the On eBoard channel. We're going to be chatting about Google Gemini for Google Workspace, especially in Google Meet video calls. So if you're interested in learning more about those tools, especially for Google Workspace and business, please come join us. And I will see you all next Sunday. Thank you so much for joining me.